Again, it's Robert Rich, and I graduated high school in '56 and went to GMI and co-op with Oldsmobile. Graduated there in 1960, and I worked on the drafting room for the engine group for a little bit, a year or two, and then got into the carburetor group. And interesting, the carburetor people all came from Rochester Products in New York. Yep. And when they needed a new one, they'd bring some new person in. Well, one of the local guys in Oldsmobile, who I'd have to say is a good friend, older guy, said, "Hey, why don't we bring somebody from within? Why do we always have to go to Rochester?" So they brought me in the group. I did menial things like gaskets and air cleaner studs, and then finally air cleaners and various things other than the carburetor itself. And then I finally got a chance to start working on the carburetor, and I absolutely loved it. There's so much detail to learn and try things to do. And so from that, end up getting involved in designing a new choke because emissions were coming, and the original choke would heat up very slowly, and the choke would stay on and be rich for a long time, where we ended up going to one that would heat up more quickly, which is better for exhaust emissions, which were on the horizon. Yep. And let's see. Oh, another one. We had, because of emissions, we had to calibrate leaner and leaner and leaner. And we ended up being 15-to-1 air-fuel ratio, 16, trying to squeeze to 17, but power enrichment was 12. So there's a tremendous difference when you'd step on the throttle and go into power enrichment. The car would kind of shoot forward. They even had a case where going up at a light grade, they had what was called power valve surge. You would go into Richmond, then back out. And so the car would actually kind of bunny hop up and down on acceleration rate. And I ended up working on new metering rods that were more tapered and coming up with more different power valve springs. So I ended up machining them on a little tiny lathe, and it went on to try to come up with some, and it finally went to production. So that was a real enjoyable thing to work on and have get a good result from it. I think the end of the 1960s, I worked in power development. They always had a power development engineer, one person that coordinated the power and torque of each engine, would have them run, publish curves, power and torque curves, and try anything new to try to improve, whether it's new camshafts or whatever, different intake manifolds. Did that a couple of years, and while doing that, well, I was into drag racing personally from, say, 1960 to 66. And after that, I was involved with drag racing at Oldsmobile, trying to get the best packages together. And with that, came up with a cold air package for 1966 W30s. Our W30s were in a class with some other vehicles that weren't quite at the top of the class. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool.
You get to do this too.
Whoa. Right.
I have my pen. Okay, I didn't know if you had it or not. I looked around the car.
That's super.
I'll need you to sign it before you
okay,
head out.
We'll do that. Yeah. And
I just didn't want you to forget it. I got to run to the boys' room.
Yeah. But we weren't quite at the top of the class, and halfway through the year came up with a cold air package, which had a new air cleaner, which we had to go to Chicago and get it made because AC couldn't tool one in time. and it was kind of a bat wing air cleaner, real beautiful looking thing, chrome plated, big 4-inch tubes, and ran hoses to little ducts that were mounted underneath the front bumpers. It came down, and so that, a different camshaft, and putting a battery in the trunk. The hoses, they had to go through the battery, I think the left front corner. So putting the battery in the trunk's good for drag racing anyway, in the right rear corner. And those cars end up winning the class. And so that was real fun to get involved with that. And also 1970, the W30, which you've seen Hearst Olds. W30 had hood scoops, vents in the hood and the stripes. Well, a 70 W30 was just great. In 1971, we had to go low compression because they got rid of the lead in the fuel. And that was going to lose about 15 horsepower. And the management was saying, there's no sense even putting out a W30 if that's going to be true. And so I ended up a little project to see if I could make the low compression equal the high compression. So I had one car of each, which was fun, an orange and a red one. I'd go out personally behind Michigan State, and 0 to 60 is not consistent, so I had time distance to about 70 miles an hour on a little back road, a tree and a sign, you know what I mean? And I'd go stopwatch, I'd go this way, then that way. I'd do at least 2 each way until I got a good average. Then go back, get the other car and do it. I mean, that obviously is a fun project. And ended up on another camshaft that gained a couple of horsepower, no big deal. But what I found was that on the dynamometer, that with the air cleaner, which should be really wide open with a hood scoop, the engine lost power, about 15 horsepower. And the torque was the same, but the engine, and take the air cleaner off and it was back up there. So I'm trying to figure out why. Well, there's a diaphragm, choke pull-off diaphragm is what it's called, that controls what the choke does when you first start the car. But that also acts as a damper or a dash pod or whatever for the secondary air valve. Well, that was operating, that diaphragm pulled at, say, 2 inches of mercury, it's a round number. Well, it so happened that with the air cleaner on, the vacuum under the carburetor and the intake manifold was building up near 2 inches of mercury. So that thing was starting to back off. I'm sorry, it was out and started pulling, which pulled the secondary air valve slightly closed. And so on a dynamometer, I could take a flashlight and look underneath and see that valve was moving. So I ended up coming up with a different vacuum setting for that little diaphragm, so maybe 1.5 inches, it moved. So anyway, that kept the air valve open, which meant all 1970s were not getting the performance they ought to get. And so I ended up putting that in, ended up running side by side. We had the management come out and do some side by sides, decided to go ahead and do it for another year. But then that little diaphragm then was put in the service parts for people in 1970 to be able to use. So a lot of times we would do something in the old days right in the dynamometer room next to the engine. And that's something safety-wise, it would never allow that anymore. In fact, even the operator would be in the corner of the room, the left rear, out of line with the rotating parts if there was an explosion, but still in the room. And new dynamometers, they're outside the room. There's no bulletproof glass. But we used to go up there, stand beside the engine with red-hot exhaust manifolds and look down the carburetor with a flashlight, and then back away before your pants caught on fire. I'm surprised we didn't have some sort of insulated blanket. We could have done that. Had aprons, if nothing else. But even that we weren't supposed to do. We did anyway. But so early 1970s, exhaust emissions were really coming on strong. I was back into carburetors, working on calibration to try to meet certain emission levels, and the management decided that instead of having just a carburetor person put his piece out into production, EGR person, distributor person, camshaft person, all releasing their part, determining what it is. One person needed to be in charge. So I decided the carburetor person would be either called a calibration person or a systems person. They would take all this stuff, put it together, and if they needed to change distributor, they'd have the authority to do it. A distributor person didn't like that, but somebody had to be in charge and make a decision what went together as a package. So anyway, we carburetor people became that, which was great because we felt we needed to, especially distributors, spark timing, all those kind of things. You absolutely had to have control of that to control emissions. So we did that. 1975, we had to have the catalytic converter. So probably from 1972 to 3, whatever, we were working heavy duty on new converters, what to do with them, how to make them work. There were people in charge of the converter who were out trying to see if they could light things on fire. Like the original ones, if you drive into a field and let it sit and idle, you could start dry grass on fire, and tall grass. So they were going through the insulation and all the things involved. So from there till in the early 80s, there was no computer control. Everything we wanted to do, we had to do with little mechanical devices, time delays, water temperature switches. There were hoses, hornet's nests under the hood, and if a hose broke or degraded or whatever, then the whole thing wouldn't work. But we had all kinds of tricks we wanted to do. There was even I don't remember what it's called, but a valve that you put in a vacuum hose that will allow, say, 7 inches of mercury vacuum instantly, and then a time delay beyond that. So we could do a bunch of tricks for distributors.
But you had to do it all mechanically.
All mechanically.
Be it vacuum or electric or temperature.
Exactly. Then the 1980s, computers started coming in. I didn't know anything about computers.
None of us did.
None of us did. And I was, anyway, so these little computer nerds came in, and they really were. I mean, the guys, anyway. But we learned from our mechanical development, we learned what to ask for, what we wanted to have, and they'd say, oh, I can do that. So I did it with a computer, which was just great. Then they learned more about the mechanical side, what the engine needed or the car needed, so you slowly blend it together and you're talking a common language.
But it sounds like from about 68 or 70 on for the next several years, most of our focus in powertrain, and I wasn't really in powertrain, but was to meet the emission drivability efforts, not power development.
Absolutely.
Not technical development of the engine itself.
Right.
But you were under the gun of trying to meet this ever tightening emission.
Yep.
And the public perception of the smoke belching automobiles and these nasty things that are destroying our world.
Yeah.
That the press and the public perceived our cars to be seemed to be strange contrast to when I was observing some of the emission work you were doing, and I'd see the tailpipe emissions compared to the background, and wait a minute, your emissions are lower than the background.
Yeah.
And I'm saying what GM should be advertising is that if you want to clean up the smog in LA, what you need to do is run a lot of new cars.
Yeah.
Because guess what, guys? Look at these numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, obviously that didn't fly, but really the tailpipe emissions. I got to the point. Well, if somebody wanted to commit suicide, just run the garage door down, start the car, and you kill yourself.
Yeah.
You'd run out of gas first. I don't think.
I think Vic. I ended up catching a raccoon this morning. I took him out. As I told you, to grandma's house. The country. But Vic, he disposes of them as farmers all do, with a gunshot or whatever. But he's talked about people that one way to normally kill them was in a trap, put them in a cover, and then run the exhaust in there, and it'll kill them. And it won't.
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
You have to use an old garden tractor or something.
Yeah. But anyway, everything we did from that point on, at least, we always did. I retired in 2000, and you were still working on improving emissions, or at least meeting emissions, and trying to maintain the drivability, pleasability.
As most, almost always a contrast to that, offsetting thing is fuel economy, power, and drivability, pleasability, customers, so they have a pleasant experience.
No, you're right. Fuel economy is the other one that's fighting you. You're almost everything you do for emissions in the early years hurt fuel economy, hurt drivability, and pleasability, and you're still always fighting, trying to get that fuel economy. People talk now, converters are so good, they don't even have to worry about emissions. Now that makes me, that's amazing to me.
I guess that's a question from somebody that doesn't know about emission work. Bob, have converters gotten better, more efficient, or because some of these converters are just tiny little guys?
But they're mounted so close to the engine.
Yes.
I guess they heat up so fast. We used to have 75% at least of our emissions was in a 23 cycle test, was all in the first half of the first cycle. All the cold start related. And we used to do everything we could, retard spark advance and do all kinds of things to try to improve that, try to get the converter to get lit off, they call it, get hot sooner.
And obviously over time that's been accomplished by moving the converter right up on the manifold.
And better converters. That will work better and also withstand the heat more.
Yes.
And can you imagine that one that's up on the end of the exhaust manifold overheating? I can't imagine running wide open throttle in Phoenix,
It has to run. It has to run red hot.
And we don't bypass.
No.
So it's just amazing that it can do that. But
And really, most of its function apparently is to handle HC's hydrocarbons right on cold start.
Yep. Well, anyways, computers started coming in the 80s, took over from all this hardware claptrap we had. We still had carburetors. The last one, Bill Porterfield may have mentioned to you, 1985, V8. We ended up going to intake ports that were 2/3 or half the cross-section area that we had went to tiny ports in the intake manifold and the cylinder heads.
And was that to get flow up so you could get the proper mixing?
Get say efficiency, because a camshaft and a real mild, super mild camshaft, so that at real low RPM it would be very efficient. Otherwise, most camshafts are efficient maybe at 2,000 or 3,000, but at 12 or 1,500 they're not. So we did everything we could, and you could go extra lean and still drive okay. So the engine, I think a 450 idle speed, and you could idle at 400 easy.
Wow.
And so our cert cars, you'd set them, mechanically set them. We always set them on the low side, to get best fuel economy. But it was amazing how smooth they ran, and they weren't that bad on performance. The torque was still okay, the horsepower was down, but we were trying with minimum, without fuel injection, with minimum content, let's say, to meet emissions and fuel economy and drivability. So anyway, after that, fuel injection was coming in, and it took over from carburetors. But let's see, for me, after that, I transitioned over into the Quad 4 development. And that first came out in '88, was fuel injection, complete computer control. Again,
it was a game changer.
A game changer. From carburetors to fuel injection was major. But again, we had our computer dudes that I could learn from them as we developed further. And again, all the mechanical things you used to do with a claptrap in early years, they could do with a computer. You had ideas. Could you do this? Could you do that? And that was fun, because we had a 4-cylinder with a 4-valve double overhead cam, and it was real fun, except we didn't have a lot of low-end torque. We only had 3 speeds. And so manuals could outrun an automatic easy, and 0 to 30 was not that strong. Then the thing ran great. Later we ended up getting a 4-speed, and we kept the same, we went up in final drive so that the speed down the highway was the same. The RPM in 4th gear was now the same as it was in 1st, or in 3rd. And that way we had more performance off the line. So that really helped.
In the meantime, did you do any work on diesels?
No.
Smart move.
Yeah. I was there when Kelly Thurston was saying, who would like to work on diesels? And Bill Kingsbury said, I'll do it. So that began. I could have been in there, but luckily I wasn't.
Yeah.
So.
And can I ask, so how early on were you involved with the Quad 4? Like, were you from the initial, or once it was already?
Okay, interesting. Mike Growalski, you remember that name?
I'm sorry, who?
Mike Growalski, I think. They brought somebody in from engineering staff or whatever to get it started. And then I'm first going to work on it. He took me for a little ride while it had stumbles and didn't run good. And he was saying, well, I'm glad to hand this off, because I don't like working on all the details. I like getting into something new. Hell, I like the details. I don't mind working on something new, but I love details. In fact, you one time said, balancing your checkbook, if it comes off a penny off, who cares? I do. That That's kind of the way I think. I mean, something's wrong. I got to go back and fix it. So that was interesting, and that's how Kowalski and I kind of operated. So we use speed density for fuel control instead of an air meter, which we all use air meters now. But I understand Chrysler still use speed density.
Oh, is that right?
And Russ Hewitt ended up in the end of his career going to Chrysler and working with them.
Okay.
And we had always debated, people that on the Quad 4 like speed density. It's cheap, you save money. It takes a lot of work to get the volumetric efficiency at every speed load point. 2,000 RPM, use instead of vacuum, you talk about manifold absolute pressure, but at every speed load point, you got to determine what the volumetric efficiency is. And we always let the closed loop determine that. You go to that point, we towing dynamometers on the road. We go to altitude and go up at altitude and do it. And run around the proving grounds, And 2,000 RPM, 50 kPa map, whatever. You stay there and watch what the closed loop does, and then you could set your volumetric efficiency in your tables to match that. So the closed loop didn't have to go a long ways. It's almost like having the sidewalk is straight, I can walk down that sidewalk, but the sidewalk is jumping all over here. It's difficult. A closed loop, you got to make it easy for a closed loop system with an oxygen sensor to do its job. If when you go to a new throttle point, it's correct. Closed loop just says, "Oh, okay, I don't have to wander around," because otherwise you get
taking input, right?
Right. Otherwise you get little errors, tiny errors, and every one of those errors adds up.
So is it different at altitude then? It works differently at altitude. Is that what you were doing testing at altitude?
Yeah, we did because let's see. A certain RPM and absolute manifold pressure is going to be at a different throttle opening at altitude. I don't. Oh shoot! We have.
Thinner air with less oxygen in it, or?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Did we have a altitude sensor? We talked about that, so that we would have different tables. Yeah, I don't remember that now. Because like half throttle here is going to be a different set of vacuum or manifold absolute pressure and RPM. Darn. I know.
It was a few years ago, Bob.
Well, it is, and it's possible. We were just trying, especially you got to pass emissions at 5,000. So we had an emission lab in Denver.
Denver VEL.
Yeah, so
vehicle emission lab.
maybe, and first of all, you had to make sure you passed there. We may have been if we had a problem there, maybe we'd have to make a change in the calibration of the tables. That would affect us back here. So we'd compromise between the two. I don't recall exactly if we ended up with any more detail than that. But anyway, so I did that from 86. The Quad 4 came out in 88, and then continued to work with that group almost till I retired. Yeah.
Can I ask about then the high output and the W41? Were you in any way involved with those as well?
Only in the calibration side. know the high output was 180 LGO, I think.
Yep.
W41, I'm a little mixed up there because I thought I read where it was like 190.
They did 2 years, or they did 3 years technically. The first 2 years were 190, and the last year was 185. Is what they say online.
Okay, now we started off with the quad 4 was 2.3 liter.
Yep.
We ended up going to 2.4.
Yep.
So maybe that's where the extra horsepower came from. Because I was used to a 180 for the 2.3, I think.
The
high output.
The high output 2.3 was 180, I believe.
Yeah.
I know the W41s were 2.3s as well.
Oh, they were?
Yeah,
Is it right?
We were talking to Dennis yesterday.
Yeah.
He was talking about how he basically just switched out the cams, and he said that was about the only change we did to get some extra power. But I assume, I mean, that then have to go back to you for, I guess, like final calibration in some sense. Did that change?
Yeah. We had from one person we ended up getting about maybe 6 people working on different combinations. And I think from 88 on, I managed that group. And so Kobe Bland works on the manual high output, so I don't recall those details. But
can I also ask? I know I think it was '95, before they switched to the 2.4 twin cam, they did a year with like a single overhead cam.
Yep.
What was the approach to that, and like how did that? I mean, I assume that would have changed everything just about, right?
Oh yeah. What they wanted to do is make an inexpensive 4-cylinder, and getting one cam, and that would at least. Well, the old original 4-cylinder, what was the Pontiac? The 2.5 liter Iron Duke. I don't remember. I mean, that's way down here. So here's the quad 4 there, and they felt there was a window in between. And what's Steve Bedford's group was getting going at Chevrolet, and they had a 4-cylinder. Started off at 2.2 liter, and they blended the groups together. But I don't think nobody had any in between. In fact, our 4-cylinder was beating the what was it, the V6 60 degree, 3.5, 3.9. We had certain like Achievas or something.
Yep.
The quad was the base engine, and the V6 was the optional. The quad was faster.
The 3.4 V6.
Yeah.
The pushrod Chevy V6.
Yeah.
That was started out as a 2.8 and then went to a 3.1 and then a 3.4.
Okay.
And even the 3.4.
Yeah.
The quad was a pretty stout engine.
Yeah.
Good specific output.
We didn't have the low end torque, but on
That's
a
right.
drag race we could go buy them. So that was an attempt to come up with a inexpensive, in between, low output engine.
And so, I mean, I know they only produced it that 1 year. Was it just not well received? Was it because they only produced it in 1995?
Is that right? I didn't remember exactly.
I didn't know it was just a 1 year deal, but it was an L40 was the code name for it.
And like you say, it's probably not well received. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe the cost to do it had to be cheaper, but maybe not enough to warrant. Keep going. Yeah.
So, can I ask some more about your drag racing? I know you mentioned that, like in a few sentences, but can you go into some more detail about that? I know you said you raced like personally from 60 to 66.
Yeah, I had a 59 Corvette, and I just take the drag strip, didn't know what it was doing at all, and later I had somebody put a stroker crank in it. It came out 339 from 283, and gobs of low end torque. I didn't know enough to do something on the intake, you know, to bigger carburetors or whatever. But then I got a 62 fuel injection, which, wow, that was like about my favorite car. And I drag raced that a lot, and just got some headers for it, and I didn't do anything to the engine, and I mean, ran real good. And in fact, the guy from, I think the name was Pete Cost, but from Washington, state of Washington, was going to Indy, and he stopped off at Onondaga to run. It was like a tune-up. Then he was going to go to Indy. I didn't know who he was, but anyway, he beat me, but not by much. And then it turns out, oh shit, he won Indy, you know. So I mean, that was fun to have something that ran that good.
Yeah.
And at the same time, maybe between the two Corvettes, I came from Bay City, Michigan, and a friend of mine who had been in drag racing, trying to put a group together to have a 62 409. And we got the dealer up there in Bay City to sponsor it, and probably got a good deal on the car. I don't remember that. So anyway, that my friend Jim Stevens drove, and went down to Detroit Dragway a lot. And that was the beginning of the Ram Chargers, Sox and Martin. I mean, Packer Pontiac. I mean, everybody. That was the most enjoyable period I think I've seen in drag racing, where there were great Fords or great Pontiacs, Chevrolets.
Lots of development, lots of interest, lots of enthusiasm.
Yeah. And we ended up about halfway in you know, never really won anything there. Local drag strips, yeah, but then after that year, that's when I got my 62. I wanted to start driving. He went on from there, and some other guys, and then Bob Small and I ended up building a 52 MG TD, and took the engine out of my Corvette, just ruined the Corvette. Put it in that, and got a dummy engine put in that, and sold the Corvette. Anyway, so we ran that. Then decided we wanted to put an Olds engine in, and so to make sure it worked, ended up getting a production carbureted what would be 330 or whatever, and put it in that. Like it ran 11, about say 11.5 with the Corvette. It ran 12.5 with just a production Olds engine, make sure it all worked. And then we built up a 330 roller cam and Weber carburetors, and it ran 10.5. So it was like 10.5, 11.5, 12.5. That was kind of interesting. And never ran an engine and dynamometer, so I could just kind of project, you know, from. But anyway, then daughter was born, and my series of Corvettes went from 62 to 4, 5, and 6, big block in 66, to a Cutlass station wagon. That ended that.
Life changed.
Really did, yeah. But that's about the time I was getting involved with the development at Oldsmobile, and that cold air package for the W30. Interesting, the guy that I had, this Jim Stevens from Bay City, who had spearheaded the 409, was working with a guy that had a Chevy wagon with a 427. So it gave him the rear, you know, and he was dominating that class. Well, that's the W30 class, and we end up winning the national championship with that. with the cold air and the battery in the trunk and whatever.
Yeah.
So he knew that. So we ended up talking to him and he said, "You son of a bitch." So that was fun. That was a great period of time.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to do it before family calls, you know.
Yeah.
Did you get involved, maybe I'm skipping ahead here a little bit, but did you get involved with some celebrity drag racing with the
Oh, yeah.
Quad 4s or what?
Yep.
Quad 4, right?
Yeah, out at Pomona, I think it was, and we ended up maybe like 12 cars, and they're all new, which is not good. You'd like to have them broken in, and had the highest ratio drive unit put in, final drive put in that they could get. And I think the fuel cutoff was 7,000. We raised to 72. And did whatever we could calibration wise. And then we went out there, and between all of us were running the cars down, an excuse to do it, but did a little bit of break-in. And the cars that didn't seem to perform as well, we went ahead and ran them ourselves, and somewhere or another we modified the other ones down so they came out about even, we felt.
Tuned them up a little up or down to make it even?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how was the event put together?
They just have a break every so often, and a group of people or celebrities would come out, they'd run them, then go back, and then the winners then would come back for the next round.
Okay. And notable people that you've heard of running the cars?
Almost seemed like there was one lady, I can't remember now, almost seemed like who was the guy that was a U of M quarterback, ended up being an actor? He was starting quarterback for U of M. And,
Oh, man, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, they're, nobody
I
that's
don't
stuck
know.
in my mind.
I try not to listen much to recall much about U of M anything. I guess Tom Brady came from U of M, but
I'll think of it later, and I'll be able to tell you. But that was fun. That was a fun trip. And
was that an old sales promotion sort of event?
Yeah.
Well, later on today, we're going to have a talk with. You probably remember Mary Casey.
Yeah.
Apparently, she lives down around Chelsea, and is driving up to meet Silas today. And Betty Jingus was in sales, maybe marketing, or I don't know, something over in Building 70. And Betty and Mary know each other. And I asked Betty to sit down with Silas because she's right out in Grand Ledge anyway.
Good.
And she said, "Oh, we ought to get Mary involved with this." And that was kind of neat. So,
Good.
Give Silas one more person to talk.
Oh yeah.
Get their recollections.
Yeah. I know one of the things I think everybody's curious about is what happened to Oldsmobile sales. I mean, it kept building up and tremendous, and then went down the tube. My impression is they changed the goalposts. They changed the rules. We had developed a vehicle that over the years, whatever caused us to develop a good vehicle, that's another whole thing. A small, close-knit group got to be better than a great big group you don't know anybody. But all of a sudden we had to go to V6s, front-wheel drive, whole new bodies, and we're all starting over. And you're not given any credit for what you've accomplished. You start over, a clean slate. We never learned how to do it. Make front-wheel drive.
we had it pretty well figured out when we were selling 1 million cars a year. Yes, the game was changing. The Japanese were heavy duty into our country. Quality wasn't what it ought to be. The union was beating the corporation to death. They were holding us hostage at every negotiation. But we were selling 1 million cars a year. Half of them were drive cutlasses.
Yep.
And the corporation, in somebody's grand plan, thought front drive is the way to the future. And I said, how many front drive Mercedes and BMWs do you see on the road? They're some of the finest cars out there. Some may be expensive, but they're slam dunk good cars. And if you don't believe me, hop in a 3 Series M BMW and drive it at the proving grounds. Holy smackers! I drove one. And what a nice automobile. Not front drive. And the word was, oh, Ted, you don't know what you're doing. Well, okay, but if we're going to abandon 500,000 sales with rear drive cutlasses, why don't we keep that car, turn it into a BMW type car, maybe keep it as a 4-door sedan, or whatever, but make it independent rear suspension, make it 4-wheel disc brakes, put a decent, upgraded engine, just make it an Oldsmobile version of a BMW or something. Rather than, we know that works. We know the cutlasses sell. We can sell cars. Let's not abandon everything we know and go to some V6 front drive thing and call it a cutlass or call it an 88 or call it a 98. I was distraught enough about it in 1983 that I said, I was pissing and moaning to a friend of mine who happened to sit right there this morning. And I said, Dennis, what the hell is going on with the corporation? And he said, and I've remembered it since 1983, that's what, 42 years? He said, we're in the business, General Motors is in the business of going out of business. And that was rather profound because you see the old death spiral and it went for a long time. But there are people that were totally disregarded, and I think a lot of them were engineers that understood cars. Now, there are marketing people that can take a product, even a poor product, and do a halfway decent job of selling it. But if you have a good product, it almost sells itself. The marketing people just have to essentially take orders. And so we needed to work on quality, and if you're going to innovate, we needed to innovate in the right direction. And it seemed like we were heading off into Neverland. And people said, "Why would I want to buy this '98 front drive V6 thing? Give me a good, solid." I remember the last 5 '98s I've had, and I want one like that, not this piece of shit. That didn't ride right. It had about 70% of the weight on the front wheels, and it didn't handle good. It was weird, and all the Carol Ely and the ride guys could do was work with what they had, and it wasn't right. You could, from many aspects, you could look at it and say that's not the right thing to do for a car. So anyway,
that's a shame.
I'm soapboxing here.
Tell us what you think.
Oh, darn. Well, Silas will interview me someday.
Yeah. He won't have to.
But anyway, it was an interesting time in the corporation, and again, don't get me started. But you had these autonomous groups. We didn't hate Buick in Flint, but they're the competition. Like, we can do better than they can.
You know what? You can have good competition.
You can have real good competition.
You can, in any sport, anything, and you appreciate each other, but you go hard at it, and afterwards, maybe go have a beer together, whatever. And that's what we did. We met out in Denver at the Emission Lab. Buick guys, Pontiac guys.
Sure.
We'd meet in Phoenix.
Oh yeah.
You talked and you were buddies. And, you know.
But your competitors, but your buddies. Yeah.
Sure.
We had each division was kind of corporation responsible for a particular area of the car when I was involved. For instance, Buick was they were the brake lead. Olds was steering lead. And so when I first went into the development group, I was a brake engineer. I didn't know anything about brakes, but I'd go to the coordination meetings and with about 5 or 6 Buick guys, and I got to know them pretty well.
Yep.
And I could name most of them right now. Bud Baxley and Harold Klug and on and on and on. No, Gordon Klug. And Roger Michaelis, he went up.
Oh, yeah.
He went up.
Yep.
I knew Roger through the brake group. And they were good guys, and we worked with them, and I was Olds had one brake engineer. And then I got moved over onto steering, and well, guess what? We're corp responsible. So I'm a lowly 6-level engineer, and now we're going up to Saginaw. Because we always had our coordination meetings up at Saginaw for steering, and there's 2 or 3 of us guys from Olds that are running the coordination meeting, and it's a big U-shaped table, and there's 20 or 30 people in there, and most of the people from Chevrolet are 8 levels, and I'm a 6-level running the meeting. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. But still, you're working with these guys on different projects and programs and whatnot. But you go away and you're still competitors. You know, if we can beat those guys in Flint, my gosh, we ought to be doing better than they are, because the heck they live in Flint. I mean, you know, we're in Lansing, so you know, there's the rivalry. I mean, yeah, sure, there's Ford and Chrysler and those guys, but I mean, they're the enemy. But these guys are the rivals. You got to beat them. And then they decided. The corporation decided, no, we're not gonna do it. Flint, Lansing, Pontiac, Detroit, or wherever Chevy is born. We're gonna cut the pie the other direction.
Yep.
We're gonna have all small cars in Lansing, and you're gonna develop Buicks, and you're gonna develop Chevys, and you're gonna what? Wait, what? And anytime you take a Bob Rich and move him from calibration over to you're going to do instrument panels now, Bob. Huh? What do I know about instrument? Oh, we're going to move you over to body group. You're going to work with George Jones.
Yeah.
You remember him?
Yep.
And you're going to do instrument panels. It takes you a solid. From job to job to job to job, I decided it takes a solid year to develop the contacts, the personal relationships, to know who to call, the vendors, who these people are that you're working with to develop, to be effective at your job. You need a year of figuring it out and knowing who it is you're working with and how's best to get things done. It doesn't happen overnight. And the corporation seemed to have no understanding of that whatsoever. And as much as I was telling management that you shouldn't be moving people all over, because it just confuses the whole program. The whole corporation takes a down step whenever you mix everything up and say, oh, okay, we're going to do it all different now. And then, oh, by the way, in the middle of all this, we're going to change names for everything. We're not going to be Oldsmobile, Pontiac, Buick. We're going to be small car group. We're going to be CPC, Chevy, Pontiac, Canada, or whatever it was. And on and on. It got so confusing, people said, who do you work for, Ted? General Motors.
You had to think about it.
I'm small car group. I'm Lansing, LAD, Lansing Automotive Division. I'm powertrain, vehicle development.
We're good.
I was hoping you wouldn't mind if we stay in here.
You bet. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to sit down here tonight.
Oh, absolutely.
Right here. I didn't think about that.
Are they kicking you out? Yeah.
What was your style? Anytime you change names, change the whole organization around it, it just takes the output or the efficiency or the quality of your output and drops it. And
I remember talking about advancements, and I remember being told that you really need to get around and switch into different areas in order to be able to be considered for advancement. Well, that means I loved calibration. I loved engines, and you become an expert at it. But isn't that okay to become an expert and try to gain a little bit more, And I absolutely loved it, and I didn't want to switch.
Yep.
And
go ahead.
Another one I was just thinking about competition. We had a 260 V8 in the late 70s, and it was, again, little tiny ports and real mild camshaft, and again, they're thinking they could have a lower level. It didn't last very long, but for 1977, I was trying to get the best fuel economy I could, and my competition was the V6 Buick. And I'm watching what they're doing. I'm sure they're watching what I'm doing. Finally, get the certification numbers, and we beat them. Oh yeah! It was great having that kind of competition. Another one I want to tell you. We had a small group in one building, all the engineering. Body group is on the far end, engine group down here. And like I had something where on the quad, to gain a little bit more performance, I was thinking we could cut off air conditioning when you go wide open throttle, up to a certain point. Try to help that low end torque, that 0 to 30. So I went down, because I knew the guy, sat down with the air conditioning guy, the other end of the building, we just sit and talk, Now at Chevrolet, you couldn't do that. You wouldn't know who it was, and you'd have to go find the person, and they wouldn't give you the time of day. We talked it over. They had a problem that you could only, it might have been for belt durability, you can only turn the air conditioning on below 4,000 RPM. I think that's the number. We were above 4,000 RPM when I'd want to turn it off. Or even if we went 10 seconds, whatever, up to a 0 to 60. I think that's what I was going to try to do. And if a person stayed wide open, they would never get below 4,000 RPM, even after a shift. And to me, they can't go wide open throttle forever. I would be willing to say, okay, air conditioning's off for 20 seconds or something, you know what I mean? In their bogey, in their mind, they couldn't accept that, So we didn't do it. But the point was, we could just go personally talk to somebody for a half hour and solve the problem. Where Chevrolet, no way. And you just wouldn't even try, So, that happened over and over with a small, close-knit group. And Buick had the exact same thing in Flint. And Pontiac, I'm sure, at a different level did too. And when they stirred the pot and had us all reporting to different groups, it got too big and massive, and just a lot of innovation went out the window. So
it's too bad, yeah.
Wow. For me, the end of the career is more boring. Beginning, there's so much going on. There's so many new things you're trying, and later you're developing this quad. Then later on, just I was going to retire. the Trailblazer, the Blazer, 6-cylinder, 5-cylinder, 4-cylinder, that family came along, and my guys were working on it, but I never got really involved with it. But when rear-wheel drive, it was going to be for trucks. The little 4 and 5 went in small Chevy trucks, GMC trucks, and 6-cylinder was in I think it's a Trailblazer, the large one, in the 2002 or 4. But 6-cylinder was so smooth. Oh my God! But when you go front-wheel drive, it's too long to be transverse. So, that was a shame. And proof is that Mercedes and BMW all use line 6s. And I can see why. No balance shaft required. They're super smooth. And anyway, not sure what else you may have that you'd want to.
More general questions. Again,
Sure.
all of these are pretty general here.
Yep.
I guess are there any projects or anything you were involved in that we haven't spoken about that you're particularly proud of or is particularly memorable in your history? I guess an example of that for me would be, so if we hadn't spoken to Dennis, we wouldn't have known to ask about like the celebrity racing with the Quad 4.
Yeah.
Are there any things like that you
I'd forgotten about that. So, but yeah.
Get my LDL done.
Yep.
So they came out with this new stuff.
We'll talk about this.
I can't think of anything. Yeah, that's. I think the stuff involving the drag racing was kind of more.
It does have some.
That was more fun.
Yeah.
I remember on that camshafter came up with for the cold air package on the W30 was a major change. I mean, from a smooth idling running car, it was rough. And I had to go to, do you remember George Hirschman?
Boy, I remember the name.
Okay, he was a straight-laced older guy that did, I'd say, records of engine details that you published to the press, and it would go into the records, permanent records, and so forth. And I remember talking to him, having to convince him that there's no increase in horsepower. And he was, no, you put a different camshaft. The horsepower's got to change. No, it really didn't. Then why did you do it? Well, I finally got to the point where with headers, you get more horsepower. Headers and open exhaust. The average customer's not going to drive that way. So you advertise for what the car on the road is going to be doing, not on a drag strip. And the only reason we're doing this is so people on the drag strip can put their headers on. That's what finally sold them. So we didn't change the horsepower, otherwise it would change the class.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, but it took a lot of arm twisting and smooth talking, if you want to call it.
Sure, a little bit of salesmanship.
Yeah.
The last question I have here, I guess, directly ties to what you've been speaking about. If you seem very detail oriented, and obviously you worked with calibration. Are there any almost like unreported facts or things that most people wouldn't know that you'd be willing to share? Anything, no matter how small. I know you spoke about the diaphragm in the W30, because I mean, people own these cars, and there's always those rumors floating around, but no one can confirm or deny.
Yeah. I think our day-to-day was that way. You're running across some little thing.
I bought a whole bunch of fruit the other day, which was probably not the best thing for me to eat.
Either you found something that if the customer found out about, they'd be all worried or whatever. You found something and corrected it before it got out there. I can't think of anything specifically.
I cut that thing up in more chunks and I cubed it and stuff, and I thought, well, I'll make this last 3 or 4 days. It did last 3 or 4 days.
Well, if it helps to narrow, I have a personal interest in the Quad 4s, owning one myself. I mean, is there anything that you can remember about calibrating that engine? Any of the variants even?
And so then you can take them out when you want them and stuff. They're just good to kind of mush on even cold. And then
Again, you got manual W41, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh man, I gotta quit.
I tell you a funny thing is that we're in Denver one time, and this Kobe Bland had the manuals and I had the automatics and calibration, and coming back from dinner, we drag race every light and screw around. I was tired of that, him beating me out of the hole. So I revved it in neutral and pulled it in drive to try to get a real jump on him. He took off and I sat there. It wouldn't go anywhere. So, okay, I guess you don't do that. So anyway, we're always trying stuff, goofing around, but that's how you learn stuff too.
Well, I got the bad news that she left.
Oh, another one. This doesn't mean anything, but you maybe could do it. You used to have the park and brake lever beside you.
Some cars, yeah.
Does yours still have that?
No, mine has the floor pedal.
Oh,
Yeah.
you could do a 180 so easy with that. Oh my gosh, it was just great.
Those hand parking brakes are
Perfect. Get off it and on the throttle at the right time, and you're going the other direction. So
that's how you steer in the winter.
yeah.
The steering wheel's secondary.
Yep.
So I didn't know this, but I guess
At one place up north where it was icy and cold trip.
Not Kapuskasing. You were talking about.
I was going to ask, who do you go for?
Yeah, I don't remember where. Anyway, there was a hotel, and loved to. You could do more than a 180 if you pull it down the throttle and then down the throttle and then put it in reverse and get the wheels the other way and you come around. So anyway, Harvey Whitman, do you remember him?
Yeah.
He was a technician. On his own car at home, he rigged up, you use the park and brake pedal and you pull it to release it. He had made a little wooden block to hold that out. So now he could just use his foot, So we had a 98 there or something like that. So he rigged up the block that we were having a contest coming into the parking lot of the hotel. And I'd try to spin as much as I could, and he'd come through and he'd do it again. We'd go back out and try it again. Finally, somebody said, maybe you shouldn't do that here. So I always found little ways on our trips to have a little bit of fun. But,
Bob, you could probably have an entire evening telling stories about test
I
track
know
stuff.
it.
Where golf carts got somehow parked in swimming pools and all sorts of things.
Oh, I bet Denny didn't tell you.
Oh, that brings up.
At one of our cold trips, this was Kapuskasing. He was doing a continual wheelie in reverse, like this, and power steering fluid spilled on the exhaust and started smoking. Everybody said, stop. We got it out, but I bet Vinny didn't tell you that. So, but
How do you watch right?
Goofy things you learn, right?
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's a power steering test, right? Well, somehow ought to integrate that into the whole test procedure, the validation of the car. Anyway,
Did that happen while you were up there?
I don't know anything.
Wrong question.
he wasn't there. It turns out. Yeah. You know, one thing we were going to try on the never did, which I wish we would have.
And I need some.
I told you we went from the 3-speed to the 4-speed, and there were some people that said, "Oh, we'll get better fuel economy, you know, with a fourth gear now." Convinced them to go the other direction, increase the final drive so that fourth gear now had the same RPM on the highway as third gear used to. Now you got an extra low first gear. That helped, but we needed more. I was thinking about trying to get some little wheels and some small tires. You know, from one of these, there's some cars that have even smaller tires and wheels than we did, and try to get some just to see what the launch would feel like if you had even more. And never did do it. All you had to do was put different front ones on, but we couldn't get a higher final drive ratio. And performance version, you'd like to have done that. And your regular one, you don't want to lose the fuel economy, but
And they sent me to Sparrow. But I don't remember.
cool there. I don't remember where the air intake came in. Is your air cleaner like in the left front corner?
In the Achieva.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I've had it. I blew the engine. I've had it broken for a while. I haven't looked in it. And
You might think about it. If there's any way to pick up truly cold air,
yeah.
you know, like what's the Dodge Challenger, they take a headlight out.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Or you can have a duct that if you can get it outside, but that's one thing that would definitely, you wouldn't do maybe in the wintertime, but in summertime, it's definitely going to be an improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you involved at all with? I know they had some quad 4s that they were testing with turbocharging, and then even supposedly supercharging. Were those any projects that made it to the point that they got to you, or were those just pretty much fooling around?
No.
Advanced development, maybe Kelly Thurston's group or something like
Yeah,
that.
could be. Yeah. I know Porterfield did some of that with a diesel, I think. But
Oh, that concept development was sort of a one-off kind of. Gee, we ought to try this in the car and let a few people drive it or whatever.
Yeah.
When I was brake engineer, we put carbon fiber brakes on a 403 equipped A car, and just playing around with it. I was working with a motor wheel and so that was way before anybody had carbon fiber brakes. They came off an F-16.
yeah.
But Hitco, Hitco, Hitco company, which was a Goodyear company, supplied the brakes for an F-16. And through Joe Buzik, we got
Really?
yeah, we machined up some knuckle shop assemblies and replaced the cast iron rotors with carbon fiber brakes and in fact our assistant chief engineer Bob Eaton, you remember Bob?
Yep.
He ended up running Chrysler. Oh, really?
Yep.
Bob and I used to ride dirt bikes together, but I said, hey Bob, take this car out and see if we can fade the brakes, because we had put essentially a W30 cam in a 403 and stuffed that into an A car, and so it was a right stout performing car. And he took it out and went wide open throttle down 496 and stood on the brakes and tried to fade it. hotter they got, the better they worked. After a while, he brought it back and said, I don't know what you did with that. That runs good.
Yeah.
I couldn't fade the brakes.
That was the worst night of my life. I think I told you. You guys didn't.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I was there
But that
for
was a
12
one-off.
hours.
I think that at that time the carbon fiber was $140 a pound, and we weren't going to afford
Yeah.
anything like that
Yeah.
in production.
Yeah.
But it was something fun. It was
Yeah.
what you'd call a future development exercise.
Yeah.
Our management didn't know a thing about it. It's just something I did with Joe Guzik over at Motorfield.
Yeah. That's great.
Fun
Yeah.
things.
Like
Well,
a big open room.
any more discussion here, or is it time for
You have-
Bob to sign?
Do you have a phone number that?
Yes.
Because in case I thought of something, real obvious, I just give you a buzz.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Ted has both my email and my
Okay,
phone number,
let's
so
do it that way.
whatever works for you.
That's good.
Okay.
That's good. Yeah.
But yeah, I appreciate you taking the time here
Yeah.
to speak with me, and
Yeah.
you have some great stories.
Oh, there's more. That's a crazy part. Yeah. I mean, it was. We definitely had a lot of fun. I think
like
the
it.
close knit group allows you to have fun with a bunch of guys and going on test trips, of course. Yeah, everybody loosens up and
Stories and stories and more stories
Oh,
about
yeah.
test trips.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, this is the shirt that